Hi, welcome to SFG Cards and Craft. Today I'd like to show you how I made this stamping tool. It's basically a copy of the MISTI. This is the original size of the MISTI, like 8.5 by 6.5 is the stamping area. First of all, what you'd need is some clear neutral curing Silastic glue and some Araldite glue, this is a 5-minute. Its curing time is 16 hours, but it's a 5-minute glue, so it will set firm enough to use in 5 minutes. Sorry, but its curing time is 16 hours. You'll also need, unless you're actually using a small tube of the Silastic, you'll need the holder to hold the Silastic in to pump the glue out, and that's what I've got there. Now the sizes of the panels that I've got there, the black. Oh yes, sorry, and you have to, if it's a new tube, you'll have to cut the tube. I've just used a knife here. You can use a small saw if you want, but I've just used a knife to cut it through. It doesn't take much to cut it through. It's fairly thin plastic. Just watch your fingers with it though, just in case you get your fingers in the way and it slips. Now the neutral cure, the reason for the neutral cure is it doesn't have the acetic acid in it, citric acid I think it's called. If it doesn't smell like vinegar, then you'll know you've got the right one. The reason for that is because it's got a steel panel there that I actually put in for the magnets, and because it's steel it can rust. So if you use the neutral curing glue, the chance of it rusting is a bit less. So now this panel that I'm using here, this is a black Perspex. It's 6mm thick, and the dimensions that I've got is 190mm by 250mm. That's the actual size of this piece at the moment. Of course the stamping area will be less than that by the time it's finished. This is just spreading the Silastic glue over at the whole of the area. You basically got to make sure that it's all glued to get a good contact and all that. For the so you don't want to have the metal bit rattling around the side. Clearly, obviously, it's something that you actually need to have it glued completely down. So I'm just spreading the bit of glue there. It's not that critical because by the time you get the pressure on it, it will actually squeeze and ooze about a little bit. So you don't have to have it completely covered, but you have to have a good coverage. And I put a bit more on, so that not too close to the edge because it will ooze out. I don't want it to ooze out, but I want to have it as a good coverage right close to the edge. As you can see, I'm going probably within about 1 centimetre of the edge there. And I move my stick. I should have really put it on top of the piece of paper that I've got out of screenshot there, but I didn't. I still have to move it anyway. And when you're finished with, if you have never used one of these Silastic guns before, there's a little lever on the back that you push to stop the glue from continually oozing out. Oh, and that's just showing the magnets on the piece of steel that I've got. The piece of steel is approximately 1.5mm thick, but really, I mean, you could probably use anything from 1 to 2mm. Just depends on how heavy you want it. You could use something thicker. It's just that it will make it a lot heavier, because a lot of the weight is actually in that piece of steel of the whole thing. Okay, now just push it down as best you can here. At this point, not really interested in getting it perfectly securely oozed out and all that sort of thing, because we need to put the white plastic on top now. And so we do the same thing. We just repeat the same thing here. That's what we did for the black, and spread it around. I didn't think that while I was actually cutting this video I should have actually sped some of these parts up, but the video itself is not all that long, and I think if anyone really did want to make one of these, mainly, well, in Australia here, if I was to buy the ready-made MISTI of this same size, I would be paying about $135. Now all the Perspex and the amount of glue that I used, okay, admittedly the Araldite, I already had the Araldite, so I didn't have to buy that. The Silastic I bought, now that tube cost me $4. you can see how little of it I used. I have got a whole lot left, so I estimate I've used less than $1 worth of that glue. The Perspex cost me $32. The steel, piece of steel, my brother cut that for me from a piece that he had. He gave that to me, cost me nothing. Now if I did have to pay for it, it'd probably be up for $2 or $3 for that piece of steel, I don't know. But all up, probably less than $35 is what this MISTI, I'm calling it a MISTI, I shouldn't be, I know. The stamping tool has only cost me around about $35 maximum. Now that's saving me $100 from what they cost to actually buy a MISTI of the same size here in Australia, that is. The mini MISTIs here in Australia, which is, I'm not sure what the physical size of those is, probably about 4.5 by 6.5 inch stamping area, I'm not sure, $80. And if you wanted to buy the 12 by 12, it's $170. So you can see here in Australia prices are very expensive, and those are the only places that I actually found. I only found one place that sells the mini and the 12 by 12 and another place that sells the regular. So there's not a lot of places here that sell them anyway. Now, sorry, back to the sizes. The white piece that I've glued on the top, that is a 1mm thickness of the same, all the same dimensions, the 190 by 250 millimeters. So far, and I found a good use for the Encyclopedia Britannica. They're not good for anything else except we can't read them anymore because you've got everything online. Encarta is actually quite a good source of anything that's inside these encyclopedias now. We've had these encyclopedias for about 25 years and I don't think every book has been opened yet. That's how much we've used them. Our young son actually did look up something on I'm digressing here a little bit, I know, but just while you can see what's going on. He did look up a little bit on Jimi Hendrix for a project that he was doing last year in the encyclopedias, but other than that, it hasn't been used in probably 10 years or more. Okay, now, this is just putting the encyclopedias back on. I do actually stack up, I think about 8 encyclopedias, although I only show putting 2 on there, and leaving it overnight. And now this is the next day, and my husband's put some Freddo frogs on my table. Sorry about that. Now what I'm doing here is, I think I've cut a piece out that I shouldn't have there by the looks. Okay, I'll show in a moment what I've done. I think all I've done there is I've just glued around the outside edge. Oh, sorry, just turning on a little light. Just put the glue around the outside edge. I might actually show. Just filling in the gap that didn't fill in with the ooze of the glue, so I've just filled in around the outside edge there where the steel is, between the black and white plastics or Perspex, where the steel is. Inside there was like a little gap, which I expected that anyway, and this is showing what I'm doing here. I've done one side already, but sorry, this is showing what I was doing, just squirting the Silastic along there, just a bead of it along there, and with the finger just sort of, I must have had I think I had a piece of paper stuck on my finger there. Just push it in basically along there with the finger, and then I come up with a piece of wood. That's just a snapped off paintbrush handle that I've got there actually. That's all that is. And just take off any excess. That's all I was doing. All the way around I did that. I don't think I showed all the way around now, but that's what I was doing. I'm not sure what's coming up next. Just cleaning up where the Silastic has gotten onto the top, just while it's still sort of soft, with methylated spirits, just cleaning up the Perspex a little bit. That will come off later on. Well, to a degree it will come off later on once it's dry, but it's sort of, you've got to sort of roll it and peel it off, and it's not the easiest thing to get off. But anyway, now this is the Araldite, which is a 2-part polymer glue, and you've got to mix the two. They squirt out as like an even amount of each. It's like a pre-measured amount. That's why the 2 syringes are side by side, and you're on one plunger, and you push the 2 together. If you've never used these glues, it's quite a good glue. Now this glue is a 5-minute glue, so it will semi-harden in about 5 minutes, hard enough so you can't get these things apart. But really, you've got to leave it for up to 16 hours or more for it to gain its full strength. So that's what this is all about. This is just putting on these little pieces on the side. Now these pieces, there's 2 there's 6 millimeters thick, and there's two pieces 25 centimeters long, and they're 250 millimeters long and 15 millimeters wide. So there's two pieces of those, and then there's two pieces which are smaller, which is 160 millimeters long by 15 millimeters wide, and they're also 6 millimeters thick. So that's those two things. The piece of steel, I don't remember I actually mentioned, the piece of steel is actually cut approximately 5 millimeters smaller, so 2.5 millimeters all round smaller than those panels. So the panels, the steel panel I've cut at 185 by 245, whereas all the other panels are 190 by 250. So there's just that 2.5 millimeter gap all around for the when you put the steel piece in. Okay, what am I doing here? Oh, just straightening up while this is still wet and movable, just straightening up and squaring it off, just making sure it's all square. I actually use a piece of cardstock, of pre-cut cardstock, which has got the perfect corner on it, to check the corners. When I had finished doing this, one of the corners was just a smidgen out, so I think something must have moved in the meantime. So that's all I'm doing there, just using a piece of pre-cut corner just to check all the corners, making sure that they're all okay. And also it takes out a little bit of the excess glue while I'm actually at it, so that's all I was checking out. Another piece so I didn't smear any of the glue around, so I used two pieces of paper and flip them over one side to the other. These stamping tools, I have actually seen people making these out of things like video cases and out of like dense cardboard, but really, I mean, this is a fairly permanent one. Those ones are only temporary, probably can't be used for any more than just the clear polymer stamps. But this one, the way I've made it, can be used for both clear polymer and the rubber stamps. So I will show that at the end here once this is all ready and done. Now, I do apologise. I thought my camera was running when I was putting the hinges on, but I completely missed putting the hinges on the video. So this is actually still not quite dry here, and I realised by the time I put the hinges on that I hadn't filmed it. So all I did was I used the same Araldite, mixed and put it along on the hinge, pushed it on, I'm just indicating here, along the back there, pushed it on, and then pushed it into place and held it into place nice and firmly while it was sort of, so that it could actually sort of harden into place, and cleaned up underneath there with a cloth. I think I used a bit of methylated spirits on that as well, and I did wipe off a little bit on the Perspex that got on there, and just used the methylated spirits. So I do apologise for that, but that was pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of just getting the glue on the hinge, trying not to get it into the working part of the hinge, trying to make sure that you get a little bit oozing out of the screw holes too. It does help to hold it in place. And that's the finished product there. Now with this, oh, sorry about the focusing, sorry. I've also cut a piece of fun foam for the full size, so that one would be for the rubber stamps to be stamped on. So I'm just showing that here now. That little bird on the side there, this is Cat's Craft birds. I think it's called birds, I don't think there's another name for it. And I haven't actually, this is the first time I've actually even opened the packet of those. I've had them since I bought the cat ones, which I've done videos for those, and this is the first time I've actually opened up the bird ones. So this is the first time I've actually stamped one, or second time. Sorry, I had stamped one prior to doing this part of the video, just to see how it would go. And there's the little bit, and I show that it can be re-stamped without any blurred over stamping showing. So it comes out perfectly stamped every time, same as a normal MISTI tool would. This is the second one of these that I've actually made. I made a bigger one. This one I've actually made it so it will take an A5 sheet of paper. Now, for those who are unsure what an A5 and an A4 sheet of paper is, An A4 sheet of paper is approximately just a smidgen under 12 inches, I think, and about 8.5 inches wide. That's our normal typing paper, our normal printer paper. And an A5 sheet is exactly half of that. An A3 sheet is actually double of an A4 sheet. So the larger the number, the smaller the sheet. So it just folds and folds and folds and gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the number gets bigger and bigger. That's how our paper works over here in Australia, and I think England's probably the same. I'm not sure who else in the world would actually use the 11 by 9 or whatever it is that the Americans use. 11 by 8 is it? I can't remember. Now this is just showing the clear polymer stamp, and all I'm doing here is trying to match up the fish tank so that I actually have a longer fish tank. This is from Lawn Fawn Fantastic Friends, I think it's called, and I'm just making a longer tank along the bottom there. I was just trying to match up I'm not worried about the sand at the bottom. I was just trying to match up the ripples on the top of the water, which I did a pretty good job of that. And the sand at the bottom is easy to fix. You do it the same as you do like a snow hill on it, like on a card with a snow scene. You just have it like there's two little hills, that's all. So that's the easy fix, but it was the water that I couldn't do it any other way. I had to overlap it specifically in the right place, and I thought that came out pretty good, so I was pleased with that. And that's the MISTI. Now, because the steel is fairly close to the edge there, the magnets, if you wanted to, not that I ever do, they could store on the front of it like that if you had extra magnets that you wanted to store somewhere rather than inside, and those ones stuck together. These magnets also, by the way, I bought these from Daiso, very cheap actually compared to what they are. I've seen the genuine magnets for MISTI here in Australia, I think probably for a set of 4, about $15. These 4 cost me $2.80 from Daiso, and I'd say that the magnetism on them is quite as strong as the other ones. Well, that's the MISTI, and that's my stamping tool. Shouldn't be calling it a MISTI. So if you did enjoy this, please subscribe and hit the like box. Thank you. Bye bye.